When I think about warplanes from the 1920s, there is one plane that has always stuck out. A plane with not only style but power, efficiency, and quick to repair. All of these are the ingredients of the Bristol Bulldog Mk2A. As a second-generation warbird, the Bulldog gracefully carried the Royal Air Force through the post-World War I era. By 1930, 100 Bulldog Mk2As were produced. Because this time period was right between the First and Second World War, the Bulldog was never introduced to combat. Instead, the Bulldog was used as security and later as a trainer before moving on to air forces around the world. Now, nearly a century later, you too can experience what it was like to fly the Bristol Bulldog. This is held possible by the developers at Aeroplane Heaven, who first produced this aircraft for flight simulation 15 years ago. And now in 2018, they have remastered the Mk2A with a high-definition model and new features for FSX and Prepared. In proper Aeroplane Heaven fashion, the Mk2A looks stunning. If I had to sum up the overall presentation of this aircraft in a single sentence, I would say an above-average attention to detail. The very first thing that caught my eye was the engine. Many aircraft use engine covers that prevent you from seeing the inner workings. With the Mk2A, the front of the engine is exposed, and they've animated each and every moving part. They didn't cut any corners when developing this model. Even the wheel chocks share the age with the aircraft. These chocks can be turned on and off with a brass switch on the right side of the main panel in the cockpit. Another feature is that this Mk2A has been fitted with optional navigational aids that the original Bulldog did not have. Now overall, the airframe is a thing of beauty. Inside and out, the textures and modeling are presented with rich detail. And no matter if you're looking at the plane from the tarmac or inside the cockpit, you can't help but feel the classic plane nostalgia that this aircraft brings. Flying at night is also a real treat because of the captivating panel lighting. I can imagine what it must have been like with just a map and compass to guide the way during times like this. Now you might be wondering, the Mk2A looks fantastic, but how does it sound? Let me be the first to tell you that the sounds put out by the Mk2A are just as pleasing, be it the engine turning over, the gun cock lever, or the gas pressure cock. Every sound is original, crisp, and clear. When you taxi or take off into the air, the engine sounds grungy, powerful, and I would compare it to the sound of a classic sports car. If you want to try your hand at the other squadrons, you will not be disappointed. The Bristol Bulldog comes with 12 different liveries for you to enjoy. Not only can you fly the various Royal Air Force squadrons, but Australia, Sweden, Denmark, Estonia, these squads have also been included in the package. When it comes to learning the Bristol Bulldog, Aeroplane Heaven has included an excellent manual to help you learn the aircraft. Each page is beautifully illustrated with diagrams to familiarize you with the cockpit, checklists, and performance measures. I found this manual to be very helpful in understanding this plane. It's a very brief read, and I suggest having a look before operating the plane. Starting the Bulldog was a fun and new experience. With no cold and dark mode, this leaves you to manually shut down the engine to perform a proper start. Avoid Control E because this aircraft simulates the gas pressurized starting system originally fitted on the Mk2A. From the moment you leave your parking spot, you'll feel how gentle the Bulldog is. When opening the throttle, the aircraft is not jumpy whatsoever. As long as you're gentle with the throttle and rudder, the aircraft responds back with the same respect. The turn radius is very generous, and you should have no problem when back taxiing on a runway. I've ground looped many planes similar to this in my time, but have found no such trouble with the Bulldog. Bristol Bulldog is fully capable of aerobatics, and since the manual includes some recommended performance measures for stalls and aerobatics, I decided to give them a try. I started with an accelerated stall. Once the angle attack was exceeded, the nose gently dropped and bounced back to level. The physics of this were very accurate. It's similar to dropping something buoyant into water. It comes down, sinks, and rises to level all in the same motion. With stalls out of the way, I moved into spin recovery, barrel rolls, loops, and half loop rolls. My main observation was the roll is a little slower and it requires more stick pressure than the modern high-performance aircraft that I'm used to. I found the performance of the Mk2A very good. I was able to run the prepared graphics sliders much higher than I normally do, specifically the buildings, vegetation, and the level of detail radius. This is important with a smaller plane because you're going to fly so close to the ground, you'll want to see the little details of the land. Now granted, I use a 1080 Ti, 4790K at 4.3 GHz, and 16 GB of RAM, but even with that, I usually have to run the sliders on the lower end for better performance. But this aircraft does not use up too many resources, allowing a smoother flight and beautiful scenery below you. Landing proved no different than any other prop. Just use the basic principles and you will be on the ground safely. Now once the mains touch down, the tail will slowly drop on its own and it will need no more further intervention with the stick. From here you can exit the taxiway and pat yourself on the back as you've just experienced a little bit of history. The Bristol Bulldog sets the bar high for general aviation aircraft of its kind. I found this aircraft to accurately represent everything I would expect the Bulldog to be. With an easy-to-follow manual and a gas pressurized starting system, this plane took me on a historical adventure. Whether you want to learn a piece of history or to put on an aerobatic air show amongst your friends, for $27.95 USD you can travel back to the 1930s era of warbirds. I want to thank you for watching this review. If you want to contact us, please do so at info@FSElite.net. My name is Patrick. Once again, thanks, and I'll see you next time.